and let his old donkey, which knows the way, pull him home. But unexpectedly, when he woke up halfway, he found himself in a misty ancient temple. He even confusedly played Pai Gao with 3 people for a while, although he later left safely. For some unknown reason, the old donkey just stood there dumbfounded and wouldn't move. If it hadn't been for Crazy Senyi and the others returning to the village and bumping into him, who knows what kind of trouble might have occurred tonight. So now, after Crazy Senyi's reminder, old Jia Quan reached into his pocket and realized that the money he had just won was actually all ashes from burned joss paper. This is too eerie. Old Jia Quan was so scared that he broke into a cold sweat and kept saying high-key exclamations of surprise or fear. He hurriedly shook off the ashes in his hand and asked third brother how to avoid disaster. Crazy Sanyi looked displeased. What else can we do? We definitely have to figure out who we're dealing with first. Speaking of this, he asked old Jia Quan if he still remembered what word was written on the door plaque. Fortunately, old Jia Quan remembered this clearly. It was neatly written with the 3 characters, Shumen Ci, Common People's Shrine. Hearing this name, Crazy Sanyi immediately frowned, because in his memory, there was no such place within dozens of miles. Since this path is blocked, we have to look for other clues. Hearing this, old Jia Quan lowered his head and pondered again. Suddenly, he remembered a very strange thing. That is, the temple-like house had no windows. He confirmed this many times at the time, because the house gave him a very oppressive feeling. So he specifically looked at it a few more times. After saying this, he hurriedly looked at Crazy Sanyi and asked him if he had any ideas. Unexpectedly, Crazy Sanyi's expression suddenly changed drastically. Heavens, a door without windows. No wonder 3 of them came out at once to ask you to play Pai Gao. Once these superstitious words came out, old Jia Quan was immediately frightened. Third brother, please don't scare me. The old man didn't explain further. Instead, he asked him to recall more carefully whether those 3 people had any significant characteristics, or if there were any familiar faces. But how could old Jia Quan remember these? The environment at the time was always misty. Even the white lanterns by the roadside were flickering dimly, making it impossible to see clearly. Hearing this, the old man also found it difficult. He asked him to recall the past 3 to 5 years, to see if there were any special people who had passed away. As soon as these words came out, old Jia Quan jumped up in shock. Third brother, what do you mean? Are you saying that people from over there want to pull me over? Referring to the afterlife. Tell me quickly, who is it? While I still have breath in me, I'll go dig up their grave tomorrow. Seeing this guy getting worked up, the old man couldn't listen anymore, because he also didn't know who was behind it. And even if he knew, he couldn't really tell this guy to go dig up graves, could he? Then the old man asked him to recall again what they talked about during the Pai Gao game, to say it out so he could help analyze it. But in reality, old Jia Quan didn't say anything else while playing cards. The only serious things he said were the agreements made when leaving. At that time, the leading person sitting in the Heaven Gate position asked him if he had any free time recently, and said he could come play more often if he was free. Old Jia didn't think much about it, and readily agreed at the time. He even made a 7-day appointment with them. When leaving, he vaguely remembered the other party saying, "Next time you come, play a little longer," or something like that. Hearing this, Crazy Sanyi immediately got a headache from anger. Doesn't this guy know? The saying, humans and ghosts uncertain for 7 days, 7 days decided, human heads west, meaning a 7-day appointment with ghosts is ominous. You've made a pact with the underworld. As soon as he saw third brother with this expression again, old Jia Quan immediately broke down. He hugged him and started wailing loudly, hoping third brother could save him. After all, He was the only 5 guarantees household in the entire village, meaning he is elderly and has no family to support him. If he died, he probably wouldn't even have anyone to mourn him. The old man couldn't bear to watch. It took a lot of effort to calm him down. Within these 7 days, I will definitely figure out a way for you. Also, what you encountered are just wild ghosts, not underworld messengers. They don't have the ability to take you away on the spot. At most, they can only slowly wear you down. Just rest assured. Hearing these words, old Jia Quan sobbed uncontrollably and quickly thanked him. However, it was already midnight. It was best to go back home early. The old man asked old Jia to drive the donkey cart in front, and he and Zhu Zi drove behind to provide light and go back together. But strangely, old Jia Quan pulled the reins several times, but the donkey just wouldn't move at all. This was really strange. Seeing this scene, Crazy Sanyi quickly told him to stop yelling. "Your donkey, something's not right." Saying this, he came to the front to take a look. Upon looking, he indeed found the problem. It turned out that the old donkey's eyeballs were completely stiff. Looking at this, it should have been possessed by some unclean spirit. Seeing this, the old man didn't say a word and directly started patting it. While patting, he chanted rhythmically, "Avoid ghosts, but not people. See the yang, not the yin. 4 hooves tread both realms. Here is where the truth lies." After reciting these, the old man also took a deep breath and forcefully cleared his throat to produce phlegm. This scene made old Jia and Zhu Zi feel extremely uncomfortable. As a mouthful of phlegm shot out, a flower immediately bloomed on the donkey's forehead, referring to the phlegm. Looking at its expression, the donkey also seemed to respond strongly. After a burst of braying, it finally returned to normal. Before long, they had arrived at the village entrance. Originally thought they could just go their separate ways home. But unexpectedly, old Jia Quan kept pitifully begging to stay overnight at Third Brother's house. If it weren't for the old man's repeated persuasion, he might have really followed them all the way home. It seemed old Jia was really scared. Ever since old Jia Quan was tricked by unclean spirits last night, Crazy Sanyi, who was with him, had been busy non-stop. And so, the very next morning, the old man sat in the courtyard and became a craftsman. This time, he didn't fiddle with paper figures anymore, but picked up scissors instead. Before long, a rather elaborate paper cut of an ox was completed. Then the old man took a string and tied it, and told Jing Dian that he had to go out again today, and might not be back until tomorrow. So the job of guarding the house fell on Jing Dian once again. Jing Dian originally wanted to go along and see, but the old man didn't agree, because this time he wasn't going to old Jia Quan's house. So in case that guy came over today and caused a fuss, he wanted Jing Dian to pass on a message, saying that he was already busy working on it. After instructing these things, the old man routinely gave a reminder, "Don't go out and play wild." Then he hurriedly went out the door. For Jing Dian, Grandpa's reminder was really unnecessary. After all, with a certain glory in hand, likely referring to a game or something he enjoys, he couldn't wait to stay at home. However, Grandpa had just gone out when that guy Zhuyer started analyzing and commenting, saying that his grandpa's trip was probably to fish for children, a metaphor for attracting children. It said that the ugly ox paper cut seemed perfect, but it was not very effective. If you want it to really work, it still needs a child's rhyme to bless it. At this moment, the old man was leisurely strolling around the village. Before long, he encountered 2 little kids playing outside. They were Cheng Long and Cheng Hu from the village. The 2 kids were very polite. From afar, they greeted Third Master. The old man smiled broadly, praising them for being so well behaved. But although they seemed to just pass by, The paper cut that the old man was waving in his hand was hard not to attract attention. And so, in the next moment, these two kids stopped in their tracks. Seeing this, the old man smiled knowingly. He even more ostentatiously held the paper cut to his chest, saying he would test the two brothers. What was it in his hand? Was there even a need to ask? Cheng Long and Cheng Hu answered in unison, "It's an ox." The old man was overjoyed upon hearing this and praised them for being clever. That's right, it is an ox. But just at this moment, Cheng Long suddenly hesitated. It seemed he had found something else. This scene scared the old man. He quickly stopped them, saying, "You've already hit the point, don't say any more." However, as soon as he finished speaking, Cheng Hu next to him also noticed something was wrong. So, in the next moment, the two kids shouted in unison, "It's clearly." But as soon as these words came out, the old man impatiently interrupted again. He sighed repeatedly, like he was performing a crosstalk show. "Wow, amazing, amazing. I didn't expect you to even guess the name. That's right, it's called Ming Ming." Seeing the old man acting so shamelessly, the two kids immediately became unwilling. They insisted on saying the sentence today. Seeing this, the old man immediately felt something was wrong. He quickly put on a fierce and menacing look, saying he was going crazy. "If you don't leave, I'm going to snatch the popsicles in your hands." As soon as these words came out, it worked. The two kids instantly shut their mouths. They turned around and ran. It seems they were really afraid of losing their beloved popsicles, being snatched and eaten by the old man. The old man watched and laughed heartily. Then, content, he strolled towards the outside of the village. Before long, Crazy Third Master arrived at a small slope in the south of the village. This place had no crops, so the villagers rarely came here. However, even so, but here stood a solitary house. The old man approached it intentionally or unintentionally, and pretended to be an old cow herder talking to himself. "Ming Ming, don't be polite. Eat as much as you want. This grassland is all yours." After saying these words, the old man also glanced at that house inadvertently. Actually, this house was not unfamiliar to Crazy Third Master. It was built in the 1990s. It was said to be in response to policy requirements, emphasizing what they called changing customs and habits. To put it bluntly, it was mainly considering that burial occupied arable land, and there were also some unspeakable ghost stories. So, they built such a laboring people's memorial hall, used to centrally store the urns of the deceased. Over time, this house was also called ossuary by people. It was locked all year round. Even the windows were sealed with thick wooden boards. And above the window frame, a Liang hexagram was built with bricks, as a barrier between yin and yang. The old man glanced at it briefly and didn't look again. Instead, he went straight to the front of the house. After he stood still, he tied the cow rope around his waist, and then started to load tobacco into his pipe. After lighting the pipe, the old man took a deep puff, then gently exhaled towards the front. Then a strange scene happened. The smoke ring instantly dispersed into a cloud and drifted downwards, directly sinking to the ground. Seeing this scene, the old man immediately understood, because at this moment, his position was exactly at the lee position of the house. With the smoke sinking like this, then the previous guess must be correct. The front and back inversion of this place in the nature of the hexagram precisely means two can overlapping, yang trapped in yin. Thinking of this, Crazy Third Master no longer hesitated, directly untied the cow rope from his waist. Just like before, he said to himself, "Ming Ming, start grazing. I'll let go of the rope. Don't run around." After saying these, the old man threw the rope away and prepared to find a shady place to take a good nap. Strangely enough, that paper cut of the ugly cow although it was just a thin piece, just stood there upright in its place. As for Crazy Third Master, he really did find a big tree and sat down. A plate of peanuts, a salted duck egg, plus a pot of Laubagen liquor. This little life was really quite enjoyable. As the saying goes, 2 liang of dukong liquor down the hatch. Even the emperor is not as good as me. Truly a picture of leisure and contentment. The old man savored it sip by sip. Unknowingly, the evening glow filled the sky. The evening breeze was neither cold nor hot, so beautiful that the old man even felt a little sleepy. In the blink of an eye, he had fallen asleep until the moon was high in the sky. Jia Laoquan from the village returned home drunk. On the way, he was dragged by his blindfolded donkey into an ancestral hall, and muddle-headedly made a 7-day Pai Gao gambling appointment with some old antiques. If it hadn't been seen by Crazy Third Master passing by, I'm afraid after these 7 days, it would have been Jia Laoquan's death anniversary. But luckily, they were also acquaintances from the same village. He couldn't just stand by and watch him die. After learning that this guy had passed by a strange house without windows, Crazy Third Master understood in his heart. He didn't say it explicitly, but the next day, he went on the road alone, leading a paper-cut ugly cow. After arriving at the ossuary in the south of the village with boarded-up windows, he let go of the ugly cow and lay down by the tree, savoring his liquor, taking advantage of the evening breeze and the liquor. The old man slept comfortably. Before long, the moon was high in the sky. When the old man woke up, he found that the surrounding environment had changed. Actually, he was woken up by someone calling him. He saw that the person was wearing a longevity hat and had a pale face, with a rather concerned look in his eyes. Crazy Third Master pretended to be surprised when he saw this, and quickly got up and said awkwardly that he had accidentally drunk too much and blacked out. But as soon as he finished saying these, he suddenly became nervous, saying he came to herd cattle, that the cow wasn't tied up. If it ran away, it would be a big loss. Unexpectedly, the green-faced man pointed directly behind him. Isn't that it? It's over there grazing. Sure enough, the old man looked carefully, and immediately found a large yellow cow with a rope wrapped around one of its horns. Crazy Third Master was overjoyed and exclaimed luckily. Only then did he feel relieved, and began to exchange greetings with the man beside him. The man pointed behind him again, saying that he and 2 friends were idle, holding a night banquet here to enjoy the moon. The old man looked back, and sure enough, he found 2 people sitting in front of a windowless old house. And those 2 people also got up and bowed to him. Seeing this, the old man also quickly returned the bow, and the green-faced man took the opportunity to invite, hoping that the old man could come over and have a couple of drinks together. Under the warm invitation, the old man reluctantly joined the table. He remembered Jia Laoquan's encounter. Back then, that guy was invited to play Pai Gao together. But today, what he encountered was a night banquet to enjoy the moon. It seems these little devils are quite good at catering to people's preferences. There were 4 dishes on the table: black, white, red, yellow, purple, green, blue, gray. Various colors, very sumptuous. The old man pretended to be pleasantly surprised and praised repeatedly. But as soon as he sat down, the green-faced man got up to propose a toast. Did he need to think more? Of course, he had to have a drink first. The old man looked embarrassed, seemingly hesitant. But in the next moment, he suddenly perked up, directly raised his wine cup, ready to cheers. Even his beard bristled excitedly. This change naturally fell into the eyes of several people. They paused for a moment, saying frankly that the old man was a little different from just now, but they couldn't say exactly where he had changed. Crazy Third Master laughed and said he was a drunkard. Surely he perked up when he saw good wine. This explanation was quite reasonable. Those people no longer suspected anything. and they cheered and clinked glasses together, watching several people all gulping down wine. Crazy Third Master's little thoughts began to stir. He looked left and right. After finding that no one was watching him, taking advantage of everyone's inattention, he directly poured the wine into his thick beard. Goodness, this trick was really well played. The unsuspecting men were still smiling foolishly, asking him if the wine suited his taste. Did he need to say it? The old man also showed his empty cup, saying this wine was smooth on the palate and went down in one gulp. As soon as these words came out, those men were naturally satisfied. And then they began to invite the old man to try these dishes again. Unsurprisingly, the old man's face changed again. This time, he was really in trouble. The wine from just now was still dripping down his beard. But how could he hide the food this time? Suddenly, he had a flash of inspiration and directly took out a wine pot from his waist, saying he wanted to share his good wine with everyone, and said that this was pure sorghum wine from the old distillery in the county. Every drop was the essence of grain. As soon as these words came out, those men were stunned at the same time. The old man didn't say much and directly handed the wine pot to the center. In an instant, the fragrance of wine filled the air, causing several people to exclaim in admiration. Seeing the exaggerated expressions of several people, the old man remained silent. He directly filled the cups to the brim, urging them to taste it quickly. But those guys were clearly already tipsy. Each of them held their glasses, overjoyed, saying this liquor aroma was much more authentic than what they just drank. And to be honest, they hadn't smelled this kind of aroma for many years. In their eyes, the essence of these grains was comparable to the yang energy of the living. It seemed they were truly drunk, unaware they had inadvertently let slip their secret. But even though Crazy Sandy heard it, he still pretended not to notice, wearing a cheerful expression, and even raised his glass, inviting them to drink together. However, these guys seemed to have forgotten even to return the gesture. Instead, they buried their heads and sniffed intensely, as if they wanted to inhale all the liquor aroma into their bellies. In folk legends, ghostly spirits don't need to eat food by mouth, but by smelling. As the saying goes, humans eat food, ghosts smell the fragrance. This is one of the distinct differences between the yin and yang worlds. And now, right in front of a misty old house, a bizarre scene unfolded. Crazy San Yi gave the three people at the table a full cup of pure Gaoliang liquor, but those three only smelled it and didn't drink. They were even intoxicated and couldn't pull themselves away. Faced with this bizarre scene, the old man pretended not to see it, repeatedly urged everyone to raise their glasses and drink together. Then, he pretended to accidentally knock off a chopstick. Seeing that they still had no reaction, the old man naturally bent down to pick it up, saying he was going to pick up the chopstick. As a precaution, he took another glance at them as he lowered his head. Seeing that these three guys were still engrossed in sniffing, the old man felt assured in his heart. While pretending to look for the chopstick, he secretly took out a gourd from his chest, then uncapped it and gently laid it on the ground. Only then did he pretend to be surprised to find the chopstick, mocking himself for being old and having poor eyesight. After a simple wipe, he smiled again and raised his glass once more, asking the brothers how much longer they were going to smell. Unexpectedly, those guys completely ignored him. But how could they have known that from the gourd under the table, a large puddle of unknown liquid had already flowed out? Seeing that the men had no reaction, the old man chuckled and didn't bother them further. Suddenly, these three guys simultaneously let out a strange cry, just like having a seizure. But in the next moment, they looked at each other again, each with a look of comfort and satisfaction. This liquor aroma is really authentic, definitely much more refreshing than the yang energy from living people. This kind of comparison sounded a bit off, no matter how you heard it. But although the old man knew perfectly well He still cheerfully pretended not to understand, and even asked them the meaning of their words. The brown-shirted old man, upon hearing this, immediately said smugly, "I've already sucked all the liquor aroma from the cup. Now there's only water left inside." Crazy Sanyi exclaimed in amazement upon hearing this. But those three men were completely unaware that they seemed to have let something slip. Instead, they simultaneously poured out the water in their cups, wanting the old man to refill their cups again. Seeing them like this, the old man was naturally delighted to see it. He happily and generously filled them up. Thus, these three guys once again started sniffing without a care in the world. Crazy Sanyi watched and laughed heartily, saying such amusing stories. He would definitely find someone to talk about it with another day, perhaps out of gratitude for Crazy Sanyi's offering of wine. These three guys finally deigned to speak. They stared intently at the glasses in their hands, telling Crazy Sanyi that there were many opportunities. As long as they maintained this cooperative relationship, it would definitely be considered a blessing in disguise. These words immediately amused the old man. He laughed and said they were already drunk. Just like before, the three guys buried their heads and sniffed intensely, completely unaware of the unknown liquid under the table, which had already reached their feet. Before long, the three of them simultaneously raised their glasses again, calling for the old man to refill them. But this time, the old man didn't grant their wish again, only to see Crazy Sanyi calmly reaching into his satchel, saying he was going to add a dish for them. Then he placed 3 eggs on the table. The old man in black was immediately displeased upon seeing this. Just eggs? How can that be considered a dish? After speaking, the 3 of them impatiently urged for more wine again. But Crazy Sanyi still pretended not to hear, saying that these 3 eggs were specially prepared for them. However, these eggs are all raw, so the taste might be a bit lacking. As soon as these words were spoken, the atmosphere in the scene changed drastically. The 3 guys showed unhappy expressions. What are you playing at? Are you being cheeky? However, Crazy Sanyi also narrowed his eyes. He told them meaningfully, "This drinking session is almost over." Before Crazy Sanyi finished speaking, the leading brown-clothed old man slammed the table and stood up abruptly. Clearly, he was enraged. However, as soon as he stood up, he couldn't help but fall backward. In shock, he quickly looked down. Only then did he realize that his feet had been eroded and dissolved. Ah, my feet! Where did this Realgar water on the ground come from? This exclamation also startled the other 2 awake. They all discovered that their feet had disappeared into thin air, and there was even a terrifying flame burning upwards along their legs. Amidst their hysterical screams, the brown-shirted old man's eyes were about to burst. He angrily asked the old man who he actually was. Crazy Sanyi smiled upon hearing this. He said he was just an ordinary cow-herding old man. You were the ones who provoked me first, and you're asking me what I want to do instead. Upon hearing these words, the 3 little ghosts were speechless. They could only scramble to float upwards, hoping to escape and survive. But how could Crazy Sanyi let them succeed? He just put his hands together and formed a hand seal for the evil purging array. In an instant, golden light burst forth from the ground. In that moment, those 3 little ghosts were completely enveloped within it. Where the golden light reached, mournful cries echoed everywhere. However, the kind-hearted old man also gave them a way out, saying that the 3 eggs on the table were the only gate of life in this array. Upon hearing these words, the 3 little ghosts immediately turned around, scrambling to squeeze into those eggs, just wondering, how would Crazy Sanyi punish them after catching them? This house without windows is located in the southern wilderness far from the village. It is a charnel house that is locked year-round. Even the windows are tightly sealed with wooden boards. But tonight, Crazy Sanyi broke into this place alone, relying only on 2 jugs of wine. He suppressed and trapped 3 mischievous little ghosts on the spot with the array. With the blessing of the evil purging array, the old man struck his palm with his fist, instantly destroying the surrounding illusion in one fell swoop. The crescent moon hung high. That windowless, gloomy old ancestral hall also returned to its original state. Afterward, Crazy Sanyi even cursed bastards angrily. But to be fair, the previous illusions were quite convincing. Then he looked at the ground again. Immediately, he got goosebumps all over his body. Luckily, he didn't eat those things just now. This was not some good dish at all. It was purely pig and cow dung. Seeing the filth on the tiles, Crazy Sanyi retched repeatedly. He didn't even dare to imagine what the wine he just poured into his gourd actually was. After recovering, Crazy Sanyi looked at the 3 eggs on the ground. This look immediately startled him. He saw that the eggs were covered with twisted and distorted marks, just like several large worms crawling on them. Seeing this scene, Crazy Sanyi became even angrier. He had clearly pointed out a clear path for them, to wash away their sins through the animal path reincarnation as animals. This was also their only way to continue reincarnation. But unexpectedly, these 3 bastards didn't appreciate his kindness and played tricks on him, hiding on the eggshells. Fine, since you want to do it this way, then don't blame me for being impolite. Crazy Sanyi put the 3 eggs one by one into an iron box. Then he sealed it with a talisman on top. He had made up his mind. He would definitely completely resolve these 3 little ghosts today. Afterwards, the old man directly sat down cross-legged, planning to wait until the rooster crows at dawn. However, at this moment, something unexpected happened at Third Master's house. The entire village was silent. Jing Dian was fast asleep as well. But suddenly, a strange magic circle flickered in his room. As the golden light grew brighter, a dark figure actually emerged from within the magic circle. Luckily, even though Jing Dian was sleeping like a log, but Juyer, that fellow, was very alert. As soon as it noticed the oddity in the room, it then controlled Jing Dian's hands and started to pull and tug forcefully. It even resorted to using slaps in the end. And so, amidst Juyer's affectionate greetings of Chao Ba, Jing Dian finally jolted awake. Following Juyer's cue, he looked ahead, immediately noticed beside his bed, there was actually a dark figure standing. But looking at the silhouette of this figure, it seemed to be a woman with a slender figure. In shock, Jing Dian leaped up like a monkey, and while yelling, he switched on the light bulb. In an instant, the room was brightly lit up. It was only then that Jing Dian realized the dark figure was indeed a hot and sexy young woman. But Jing Dian, being a straight man, wouldn't think of these things. Hearing the young woman directly call out his name, Jing Dian, even more alert, asked who she was. Juyer quickly reminded him, saying the door to the room hadn't been opened, which meant this girl must have used magic to sneak in. Hearing this, Jing Dian was immediately taken aback. But who would have expected? The young woman didn't respond at all either. Instead, she started asking about the situation at home. Why are you the only one home? Aren't you supposed to have a grandpa? Jing Dian was confused by what he heard, asked her what she wanted. Meanwhile, a phone call happened to reach the old man just then. A call at this hour. Could it be that something happened at someone else's place again? Puzzled, the old man took out his phone and checked. He then realized the caller was actually Old Poison Meow. How strange. That old geezer would actually call. Thinking this, the old man started teasing as soon as he answered. What's up, old poison bug? Haven't heard from you in years. I thought you were dead. Unexpectedly, Old Poison Meow seemed to be a bit anxious, saying he had something to call about, just to give a heads up. Judging by his tone, it sounded like he had tried calling several times already. When Crazy Third Master thought about his situation just now, it seemed reasonable that there was no signal back then. Old Poison Meow didn't know about Crazy Third Master's situation. He still thought it was just a simple signal issue. So he just went ahead and started talking about what he'd mentioned earlier, which was that today, his granddaughter brought wine and food over for a visit. In high spirits, they drank a bit too much. And then, accidentally, he let something slip, said some things he shouldn't have said. Crazy Third Master chuckled when he heard this. Huh, what did you spill? Did you spill that you used to be ruthless and kill people like FLIs? Old Poison Meow sounded a bit exasperated when he heard this. He told Crazy Third Master not to cut him off, saying it wasn't about that at all, because he was talking about the shadow marriage between his granddaughter and Jing Dian. Hearing this, Crazy Third Master couldn't help but feel a moment of surprise. But then he thought about it and didn't take it seriously anymore. After all, the kids are all grown up now. It doesn't seem like a big deal for her to know about this, right? But that wasn't the problem. Old Poison Meow said he woke up to find his granddaughter was gone. Judging by this, she's probably gone to find you. Crazy Third Master was dismissive. He was in Shandong. The journey from Shaoxi isn't a short one. But as soon as he said this, he heard Old Poison Meow say, "My four-ghost sedan chair plaque is gone. His granddaughter must have taken it. She'll probably get there soon." Hearing this, Crazy Third Master immediately got angry and started cursing. "You fool. You didn't keep the thing safe, and she just took it so easily." This sudden scolding made Old Poison Meow a bit embarrassed. He said sheepishly he was drunk and wasn't paying attention. But Crazy Third Master didn't really take it to heart. Even if that girl has the four-ghost sedan chair, without a formation eye, it's hard to get a foothold. After all, Shandong is so vast. She'll have a hard time finding it. But Old Poison Meow delivered another blow after hearing this. He said when he came here 8 years ago, he left a sensing formation eye at the old man's house. With his granddaughter's abilities, finding it would be a piece of cake. Mentioning this, only then did Crazy Third Master suddenly realize, but what should I do if I'm not home right now? As soon as Old Poison Meow heard Crazy Third Master say he wasn't home in the middle of the night, Old Poison Meow chuckled. "You old codger, what are you up to